trying to navigate your way through the world requires throwing out hypotheses and living as if one thing is true and something else isn't true.
Really? Does it? Are you sure about that?
I love that question. Welcome back to If I'm Really Honest, where I seek truth without tribalism. It's a place where ignorance isn't punished, curiosity is rewarded, and conflict doesn't mean contempt. As you probably know, I am not a philosopher or a cultural historian or a journalist, even though I sometimes cosplay as one on the internet. That's why it's helpful to get new ideas from and run my own ideas by actual professionals. And that's why I invited Andrea Hiott. One of the signs that she's a real professional is that she rarely flaunts her numerous credentials. Instead, she just deals with ideas, no matter the source, and patiently explains them to ignorant people like me, all the while staying open to learning something from anyone. In other words, she's a really great person. And yes, she's also a world-traveling philosopher and journalist and historian. She's an author and a neuroscientist, a credentialed professional, as well as an autodidact and a polymath in many ways. Andrea has a unique and fascinating podcast called Love and Philosophy, in which she interviews some of the deepest minds on the topic, including her own. In this conversation, I got her feedback on some of my ideas on love that I'm developing through my next episode on love and religion, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to get notified when that's released. This episode gets into the great value in holding seemingly opposing ideas and why that's so hard, and why so many of us struggle to be really present with each other or even with ourselves. It's all about love and vulnerability and all the connections in life that make it unique and worthwhile and full of wonder. A practice that is beautifully embodied by Andrea Hiott. What do you mean when you talk about paradox?
That's a really good question. You know, there's so much philosophy about what paradox is, and I just wrote a whole book about it. But I think the easiest, simple thing is to think about this quote from Fitzgerald. Maybe you've heard of it. I use it all the time about like the sign of, I think he says like the sign of intelligence or genius is being able to hold two opposing ideas in mind at once. And I think that's kind of the best way to think about what I'm talking about when I talk about holding paradox, or it's not trying to resolve something. It's seeing this seeming dissonance that seems not to make any sense, or that both sides seem to be true. I think it was Niels Bohr said like the opposite of a true statement may be another true statement in science. And actually that you find that, right? And that seems so counterintuitive to us because we're so used to thinking either this or that. And part of what I'm trying to push at in so many ways with this philosophy, with the science, with just the conversations is that actually there's a way in which we can hold those things and we don't need to choose them, and they can still both have disagreements in areas where one is right or one is wrong or whatever. That's why that maybe is very important in that Bohr's thing, right? So yeah, I think that's probably just how do you hold two things that seem like you have to choose between them. So that I think that's probably what I mean by paradox in the most general way.
So then some things arguably are wrong. So
of course, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm glad we agree on that. So then how does a person decide when it's valuable to hold a paradox and when something is not a paradox and you're just dealing with something that's wrong?
I think it's always valuable to try to have this orientation. I think that's actually part of what's so hard about it, is understanding that you are going to be solid, strong, not passive. This isn't about just, everything is good and right and everyone's, whatever you say must be right. It's not relativism or anything like that. It's actually being clear about how you feel and coming into it knowing that it's possible that from another position, a person who has gone through a completely different life trajectory from yours is going to see that very differently. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. Like, that doesn't mean that because they're saying something that contradicts what you believe, that you're wrong or that they are wrong. It does mean that there's going to be things that are wrong in the way that you're going to have the conversation, if that makes sense. So, I mean, we could do like really big dramatic examples of things that are wrong, but mostly I think with this orientation that what matters is how you got there, and wherever you are, you're going to be in relation with one person or two people or whoever, whatever this conversation is that you're having. And right and wrong exist, and you are there to figure out what they are, but you're only seeing your path to that point, and the landscape is huge. So if you just come with the understanding of how do we hold the space rather than defend this position, it's a very different orientation. So I think starting from there and trying to like think of the space around these two positions is always a good thing to try to do. Of course, if your life is threatened or something, I mean, we have bodily concerns that make that hard sometimes. But starting from there, trying our best to start from there, I think it's a very rich and rewarding way to do it, because often what we are afraid is wrong about our view, or what we want to convince the other person is wrong about their view, is actually a portal into a deeper understanding for both of us.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely deeper understanding of ourselves and our world, which might be the same thing as deeper understanding of the other person as well, at least to a degree.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I tend to believe we're all co-creating the world together, in different degrees, and that, yeah, there's a way in which we can be very excited about differences if we come into it with a sense of care. That's always the tricky thing, because someone might want to just take advantage of this paradoxical situation. And that is done all the time, because, you can do that too. Once you understand this shared space is there's also ways to take advantage of that. But I really see it as kind of the most potent and most exciting and most connective space to be in. And I don't think coming into it with care is a weakness. I actually think it's a very big strength. Maybe in the short term it can look like it's not, but in the long term, cultivating that, you actually become very strong, and you learn how to handle even when someone might want to try to manipulate that space.
And that's a tough one. That's a whole other discussion. I want to steer a little bit into the paradox of paradoxes, in that, like, scientifically, and also just trying to navigate our way through the world, throwing away the complexity of the word navigate, for right now at least. Trying to navigate your way through the world requires throwing out hypotheses, and living as if one thing is true and something else isn't true. And
really, does it? Are you sure about that?
I love that question.
Yeah.
Well, I think not in a grander, from my perspective, as a piano teacher who doesn't think about this as for a living, it seems like
it's awesome that you're a piano teacher.
Oh, thank you.
Can I tell you really quick? I love the piano. As a kid, I wanted to play the piano, and I begged. I was like the only kid in America who begged for a piano lesson.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, but we moved all the time, and so it just never happened. But anyway, so.
Yeah, when you say all the time, how frequently was that?
I just remember really wanting to learn the piano, and at some point they gave me lessons to the guitar for some reason, because we could buy a guitar, or we had a guitar.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we were moving. You can't really move with a piano so easily. And I was terrible. My guitar teacher actually, I wonder if you've ever told your students, my guitar teacher told me, some people just aren't made to play the guitar. I remember it very well. It was really painful. But it was actually a relief, because I couldn't, like, my fingers, it just didn't, it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the sense that, like, some people are not compelled by this instrument, I agree with that. But, like, I mean, that would be like, to me, like saying, well, English isn't for everyone. Maybe you should just stick with Spanish or whatever. Like,
yeah, it's kind of a bad thing to say.
How brutal.
Anyway, but why do you have to throw away hypotheses? Because a hypothesis is not something that you have to, like, decide and live by,
Right.
An hypothesis is just a possibility of what might be. I don't know. Yeah, but you were going to say, I interrupted you with my guitar story.
in order for me to make it through my day successfully today, or at least some days, I have to pretend as if gravity is a real thing that pulls other objects towards it, and that it doesn't repel objects. Now, obviously, there are theories about forces that do repel things, but I'm going to walk through my day as if that's not what happens, as if I'm drawn to the earth. That's going to keep me safe.
I
And
just
so I'm
don't
gonna,
think you have to do that. I mean, you are walking through your day, and what we've called gravity and what we're trying to understand with all our hypotheses, those hypotheses don't actually matter to your day because it's happening. It is what it is. Like maybe if you're a scientist, it matters, and you're trying to figure out, something about some kind of dark matter or something, physics, But this is what's happening. This is our life, and we use hypothesis to try to understand it better. And there's all kinds of ways we can do that, but they don't necessarily ever fully explain this, right? And this, I mean, you don't need to wake up in the morning and decide if there's gravity,
okay.
right?
Right.
Because it's not going to change anything. If you decide there's no gravity, you're still going to be having to deal with gravity, right?
And I will still live as, yes, right. It's just
With whatever we're calling gravity, at least.
Well, yes, and before we understood that there were such forces, like all my pets are living in accordance with gravity, with no understanding about how it works at all.
All your pets? How many pets do you have?
I've got 6 pets, 6 kids
Whoa.
and 6 pets. Yeah,
6 pets and 6 kids?
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. You should
Yeah.
have a TV show.
right, yeah. So then I feel I would have stated the exact opposite. I feel like in
Okay.
science, these throwing out hypotheses, like throwing them out entirely, like putting them in the trash bin, that's dangerous because hanging on to a hypothesis always leads to a dead end. Like it looks like progress for a long time. Newton brings us this idea, and then we follow that, and that helps us learn all kinds of other things. But in the end, you're not going to get past Newton until you throw Newton out, and you go like, oh, well, actually, here's this other thing that works better than that. And then you follow that one. Oh, this is now the truth. And I feel like that's kind of where some stuff has stalled out, or where we might be at a new inflection point, is that like we're currently, everyone's stuck to Einsteinian relativity. And now we're like, well, actually, we're not going to get past this until we're willing to throw it out. And so I feel like science is the place where hanging on to a hypothesis might be what gets that field killed. Whereas in my own life, throwing out hypotheses is what keeps me alive. But you're stating the opposite, that in science it's
I don't think it's not that I'm saying the opposite. I think I understand what you mean. It's just not about gravity, right? That was maybe not. It's more about, do you think it matters to be a good person? Do you think that like how we're living with each other, I think, is maybe more what you're talking about. Because,
okay, go ahead.
I don't know, maybe instead of something like gravity. But I mean, this could kind of, because even in science, like this is part of that holding the paradox thing. Even in science, we never really throw everything away from Newton or Einstein.
Right.
Or in a way, what I'm trying to say is, like, instead of this linear idea that we have that we're going forward and everything is either right or wrong, maybe it's more like a constellation of possibilities. Maybe it's more fractal, maybe I don't do drugs, but I mean, maybe it's more of kind of that view of that people seem to have when they do psychedelics and things, right? Which I understand, where from different positions, different scientific theories are going to make more or less sense. That's a really hard thing to hold. And then to talk about like normal everyday life, I think that's also true. But as I was saying, yeah, we do need to, what you're saying, throw away hypothesis in the sense of decide what matters, right? And what our values are and what we're going to live, what feels like true for us, right? Is that what you're saying more?
Yeah, well, I think maybe I think you're right. Maybe right, though I just need a better example. So, like, if I've got someone who strikes me as untrustworthy, perhaps this is a fact about them. Is what they're saying to me true or not? Should I trust them? I have to make a decision and then live as if that thing is true in order to make my decision in this moment.
Do you make a decision about them as a person forever, though? Or do you make a decision in that moment about, am I going to trust this person to drive my kid to school or something, Because in that moment, yeah, you have to make the decision, but I'm saying that's not like some big decision that this person is never trustworthy and therefore I throw them away. It could be that we have to come to positions where we decide this is a really unhealthy relationship. I've seen it plenty of times, and I'm going to choose not to be in this position anymore. And I think those are the kind of decisions I'm thinking that, yeah, we do have to make every day. But for me, that's not like a hypothesis of, is this person always a terrible person? Because most people are not always terrible. People are always like good people. Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
guess hypothesis, I'm thinking we're gonna just like decide that we've solved something. And I don't really see everyday life in that way. At the same time, I completely agree that to get through the day and survive, we're doing this all the time. I mean, a lot of times without contemplating it, it's just we're feeling it as and with our bodies and doing that. And that's absolutely how we make our way and survive. That's, crucial. And I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, that might be a great encapsulation of the difference in my mind between a person who is comfortable with paradox and a person who isn't. Because I see most people that I know do throughout the entire person. Oh, well, you're a bad person. You're a, and then they're
yeah.
going to put a label on it from narcissist or whatever other cool term they've learned recently, and then that person's just in a bin, and then we move forward without them.
Yeah. This is very sad and hard and easy to understand because when someone does something that hurts you, you want to do that because yeah, I mean it's a terrible feeling to be hurt and or have someone around you hurt and the problem with that is that we tend to, like when that's done to us, tend to like it never solves anything. If anything, it could make it worse, the whole possibility of it. So, but yeah, what were you saying? You were saying more, but
Well, I think that's how we got here is by that overgeneralization and the not paradox thinking. And I think maybe that's what I was referring to originally when I was saying throwing out hypotheses is like, it seems fundamental to our intuitions and to our survival.
But when you say that's how we got here, you mean here like as a country or something?
No, no. I mean, like if you look at the chimp tribes or whatever, like they
here
don't
as humans, okay.
worry about their paradox. They just act instinctually.
Yeah, sure, but we're not chimps. I mean, we're another kind of part of life, It's not like, again, it's not that linear thing. I really don't think, I do believe in, that things evolve and all of that, but I don't think there's like a line from, an ant to a chimp to a human or something. It's more that fractal thing I was talking about. And as humans, we've developed a capacity to be able to understand that there are opposing things that aren't able to be resolved. And we've called it a paradox, right? So we've already gotten here. And just because a chimp doesn't do that doesn't mean that means that humans shouldn't. If anything, we should be finding ways to care better for life. And this might be one way to do it.
Indeed. Right. Yes. I just, maybe I'm saying that in like finding empathy for the people who do throw people out or throw hypotheses out. Like that seems like you're doing the thing that we've been doing for a long time. And I understand why you do that. But there's this other value that you can find in paradox if you have the bandwidth to survive in your life and also do this thing of holding paradox. So maybe we could switch then seemingly to an unrelated field for a lot of people to love and what in the world that is.
Unrelated. It's so related. If you've ever loved anyone, you've had to hold paradox.
Ooh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Don't you think?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Or tension. We could even talk about it as tension. I think care is a kind of tension. I mean, I remember I think it's very hard to love. It's very tense to really feel it, when you love. I think that's a kind of, you don't have to call it a paradox, but you're holding a kind of tension of, it's actually almost painful to feel so much pleasure or connection.
Yes. Well, and there's the promise of pain too. Like it never ends well.
And it's part of it.
There's no good ending. So
yeah, well, even not an ending, just that something could hurt the person that you love so much. It's awful, And like having to hold that is part of being able to feel that love, and that's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then they could hurt you, which I think is the
And
first
yeah,
and
right.
primary
That is a kind
thing
of
we defend.
hurting of you in a way, right?
Yeah,
But I know what you're talking about. They could do it on purpose or something, or leave or something. Yeah.
right. Okay, so then to go back to the definition of it, what exactly is love?
Oh gosh.
I know. Sorry.
It's okay. I think it's what I think everyone should have their own definition of what love is, but I do think it's the let's try to put it in the what we've been talking about. I keep talking about this space that we're sharing or that we're holding or that we're exploring. And I guess I think of love as that that ability to explore what has to be holding us in the same space. Um, I know we feel very separate and things are separate and so on, but that we can understand ourselves as sharing something bigger than ourselves is what I think of as love. And when we're really not judging and like taking it personally, but totally present, then I think you feel what's actually always there and possible. And that's a kind of feeling of love, but it can also be that tension that we were talking about. Um, because it depends how much judgment's going on and how many layers of kind of, you know, if you're trying to understand it and all of this stuff. But I think it's a very real thing. We could talk about what happens in the body and the brain too. You can see different changes in all of those, but in a larger way that still relates actually to even the scientific part. I do think it's that ability for what's holding you to change you.
Let me spend a second with that. What's
Sure.
holding you to change you?
Hmm. And be changed by you. It's like the evidence of what it's the evidence that you're more than you think and that you're not what you think.
So then what is the difference between love and something that's not love, some other antithesis of love?
I think it's the awareness of it and that connectiveness, that inescapable connectiveness of the moreness and the notness. That sounds way too abstract, but that so maybe we should think of an example. Let's think of it. You said you have 6 animals. Kids is easier, but also I think totally different because it actually has a physical change in your body, you know? I mean, like with animals too, but most people can understand the animal thing, even if you're 17 or whatever. So, you know, let's talk about the dog, right? There's just some kind of sense of there's a sensuality of knowing that another sensuality is aware of you and that you're aware of it. That I think is incredibly potent and boring in a way too. Like boring in the sense of you're not bored by it, but like it's actually always there. It's just, are you going to like at what point are you able to relax and not judge and feel it? Um I think that's kind of the difference between, I don't know what you want to compare it to or something. Because you can I think that space I really think of love as you could have a kind of lens that orients it through like agape or this unconditional or through eros, if you're attracted. Like you can always add these kind of layers to it. But that basic what I'm talking about, that basic presence and that the other person knows you, like this kind of recognition, uh that's part of all those other kinds of love, right? All those other ways that you and whatever level and height. And so I really think of it like that evidence of the inescapableness of presence, which doesn't mean you feel it that way, but
I'm sorry, it doesn't mean you feel it that way?
I don't think you can be present to that, which is
Mhm.
a different sort of feeling, but it's always there holding you. Even when you're really depressed, like clinically depressed, you can't feel love at all then. I mean, like you technically can't. Some people can't when they're so depressed because of what happens in the body but I would say the love is still holding you. And if we can help you get your body to a position where you can be present to it again, you know, then you will feel it. So I know in a way that's a really, really mystical kind of idea of love, but in another way, it's a very, very, I almost mean it in a very, very practical and everyday way, because I really think that practical everyday life is so potent with that we really can't escape it, which is why it's so tense and frustrating and can be so, can drive us completely mad, right? When you do start to focus on it and when it has that layer of eros to it, which really makes you crazy. But I really think of love as it is what is holding all of this. It is the holding. It's not even what is holding. It's the holding. It's the presence.
And so then it seems like evil would be what I would say is the antithesis of that. It's the denial of that relating or that relationship, or at least it requires that.
I think evil is when you take advantage of it.
Okay.
Fully. I mean, take advantage of it to the point where you maybe realize that you are so connected that you can use the power of that connection. And I think it's a numbing of the body in a way. You lose the actual potency, but you seem to have more control externally. And so therefore it seems more powerful, and other people might even think it's more powerful, but the way that it's experienced sensorially, the only way we can be from this position as a body embodied, I think you're actually losing a lot of power when you become evil, when you start taking advantage that way.
You were thinking of evil much more deeply than I was, of course. So
Tell me what kind of evil example you're thinking of.
Well, in the case of like a pet, I was thinking like someone who abuses their pet. Like to me,
gosh,
there
that's
are some
awful.
people that like they enjoy that. Like the agony is intriguing to them, and it gives them some kind of reward. But I mean,
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. I think. Yeah.
No,
because
right.
when
That's
you
the
do
deep
that,
evil.
you feel like you've externally controlled your environment because because love exists. Exactly because it's inescapable that we have so much connection to one another that we can hurt each other. But once you go evil, and evil is such a loaded word, but if you do something like that to another life, yes, what you've done is demonstrated how powerful presence is. But you've diminished the actual embodied presence of your kind of instrument of that capacity. And so, yeah, it very quickly becomes a disease in a way, because it's like any other kind of a dopamine hit that you want that rush or something, but it's never going to actually be the presence of embodied kind of delight that you actually want.
In my mind, it feels like there are then two different levels, because the level of evil that I was thinking of was someone who just doesn't acknowledge the, I want to say, personhood of their pet, and kicks their dog or locks them in a crate all day or whatever, and not aware, not conscious of what they're doing. So they're not reaping any benefit from it. They're just denying that this relationship exists.
Okay. I think that's more a kind of ignorance of the presence then. That would be like a, where you are, because that's not, often that's not a premeditated kind of thing. That's more of a reaction of, like you're feeling certain things, or people are, or they're, who knows what, but it's a kind of there's less presence in those kind of acts, if that makes sense.
Well, I think they look the same from the outside, which is why we a lot of times call
do.
people evil who are ignorant, because an evil action looks the same as an ignorant action.
I think that's a great point, yeah.
And I think that's how we can manipulate other people into things that look psychopathic or evil is just by convincing them that this relationship doesn't exist, that these people are not real humans, or these animals don't have feelings, or whatever it is. There's no relationship there. It's just the same as a piece of wood or whatever else, assuming non-pan consciousness or whatever. But if you can convince a person to do that, then they can move forward with an evil action without actual psychopathy or
Yeah, I think that's a really hard subject, but it's true. I mean, we can all understand it because as kids, you don't, we all come into awareness of ourselves as a body and as a presence and as a power and as something with a name and all of this. But that is, we can all remember times where we can see it in other children or people where you're still developing that, and you're basically just you're more or less kind of going with what everyone around you is doing. You're sort of embedded in those patterns, and if those patterns are negative in the way you just described, you would just be going with them without some kind of actual sense of, first of all, that you're living at like a 3 in terms of what's possible with connection and presence, but also, you would just be doing that. And a lot of stuff is just recognizing that you're doing, like, sometimes people just don't. Let's think of a less loaded example than so painful, but someone who's living in a kind of way that's like dirty, right? They're not like cleaning everything in a certain way. It might just be that they haven't really thought about it because it's not the way they grew up, and you just don't think about it. You're not thinking about what another person might think of as dirty, right? Like, because we all have different, it depends how we grow up. But then, someone says like, oh, if you should probably clean this part of the sink or something, because then you don't have these bacteria. Then, oh, okay. Oh, wow. Then you actually see that there's something dirty on your sink and you become aware of it and you clean it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a way in which we change the way that we are in and see the world, that can be related to what you were saying there. Like, kind of becoming aware of the power of our own actions, or even of the state of the world that we're interacting with.
One, I feel like that I'm going to call it empathy, or yeah, we'll go with empathy. Is so closely related to the love in that it requires the acknowledgement of that relationship between you and the other and their perspective. And so I think the people that we generally think of as the most loving people are the people who are most fully, constantly aware of their relationship with the things around them, and are appreciative of the difference in perspective of all those beings.
Yeah, isn't that interesting that it seems to heighten with your ability to be present and hold the space of the other person without judging? I do think as kids, like, we love, and we, that's why I was saying it's kind of inescapable. As a little kid, you love, like, you're just loving, But that's really different than what you just described, of that presence of that almost heightened sensuality of love, right? Which we can kind of grow into as we become aware of other people and of ourselves and all of this. And but yeah, I don't think I guess I would try not to put it on like a level, But as far as the way you're experiencing it and the possibility for you to share it or give it, or like kind of help create the space where other people can feel it in the way you described, I think that, yeah, that increases so much. And just that way of living is so different from, and it doesn't even have to be with people, it can be with a tree, and stuff. That way of being in life is so wonderful, right? And it's so hard with everyday life to, first of all, to even recognize that that's possible, right? I think a lot of people haven't had the chance to even recognize that is possible. Just to tie into that theme of a kind of blind spot, or not a deliberate decision not to feel love or not to try to create love, but just never having been shown that was possible.
Well, and this is where I feel like in order to make it through life, there's a certain a certain compartmentalization and a putting on a facade of a separateness from the rest of the world. Like when I'm in traffic, I can't be worried about all of I got to pretend like they're not related to me at all, and I'm just protecting me. And as long as we all don't worry about each other and we're protective of us, then we can get through with relatively few accidents. But then once we step out of the car, there's this relationship here, and now I need to connect with them in a way that I needed to intentionally not right before.
I just, again, I mean, this is like a broken record, but I don't think it's either or. I mean, because a lot of road rage and crazy stuff that causes accidents comes from that way of thinking of I'm in my little like machine, and who cares about everyone else? I have to take care of myself. So I would hope that I actually think like doing some kind of, if everyone could actually realize they're dealing with actual human beings who have perhaps 6 children and 6 dogs, then like driving actually might become a much more gentle experience. But because we encapsulate ourselves and we turn on the music and we feel like we're not actually human anymore, I think that actually causes more accidents. So,
Okay.
But at the same time, I know what you're saying, because you have to watch out, because a lot of people are going to be, it's almost like it perpetuates itself, because a lot of people are actually in that mindset, right? Like cars themselves are encapsulating. I love cars, but they actually create that sense that you've like an extended sort of superhuman body, and it's you against the world. I mean, even on a bicycle you can feel like that, but in a car for sure. So I know what you're saying. We always have to be aware of boundaries, and we have to kind of be smart about this. It's not about like, oh, everything is one and all I have to do is like love the world, and then no one's gonna hit me when I cross the street. I mean, that's not practical or healthy.
Well, in the road rage example, it's funny that you say that, because I think of it as the opposite of that, in large part. Like when I see someone get mad at another driver, like I can see in them a misattribution of intentions of this other thing, where if it was an inanimate object, it was a self-driving car, the question wouldn't be what kind of idiot would do that, and
Yeah.
like it's not an idiot, it's just doing its thing. And I feel like that's where the empathy really helps, is when someone does cut you off or whatever it is. Like that's the moment at which I need to empathize with the person. I need to come out of my capsule of like ignoring the world and be like, who knows? They probably didn't see me. They're having a bad day. They're in a rush. Whatever. I've been there before. So that's what, in my mind, prevents the road rage, is the empathy for the other, which sounds like the opposite of what I just said.
I don't think it's the opposite. I think it's like exactly that kind of meditation I was trying to say that we could all do. I have someone in my life who's a terrible driver in this way, who gets mad at everyone. I love this person very much too, by the way. They're very lovable. But for some reason, in the car, this person just decides like everyone's trying to do something terrible, and if they cut them off, they must be terrible. And so I kind of have developed this way of, it's almost like thinking of them as living in their own sort of movie or something. It's, you can kind of, as you were saying, if I think we even had this conversation once, me and this person, like, what if that person is on their way to the hospital? Like, just imagine some crazy story that it could be, imagine it's your loved one and they've just gotten a terrible phone call, and they're completely, you can imagine this, right? And once you start to imagine that, actually that energy changes a lot. I saw that, with this person. So yeah, it's funny how once we personalize it in a way, or once we kind of try to imagine ourselves in that situation, it changes. But of course, when you're in traffic, this is not usually what most people are doing.
Well, and I feel like it's because of that danger factor. Because when you talk about riding on a bicycle, like I feel more defensive. I feel more angry at the world the more exposed I am. So when I'm on a bicycle, like riding next to the road, like if anyone, you
have to be really careful then.
Yes, and if anyone comes any close to me at all, like I've got instant bad intentions that I'm attributing to them. Because of how, I mean, hopefully I can combat those. But like that is the fear response is like not necessarily in my control.
You really have to be careful, yeah.
So, I feel like the exposure part is, and the need for defensive is.
Yeah, well, that's just something interesting about vulnerability, I guess. that the more vulnerable we feel or the more vulnerable situation we're in, the more likely we might be to close off like that. I don't know. I don't know that it needs to be necessarily solved, because you can do on the bike. We should be really careful. I mean, I'm in Europe a lot, and a lot more biking goes on, and you have to be really careful to watch out for the bikers themselves. If you're walking around, because the society is sort of geared toward the bike.
Yeah. Okay.
In the Netherlands, for example, and yeah, so I think we all have to find this balance, right, between how can we imagine ourselves into places of greater connection or empathy, as you would like to call it, but maybe even just not judging. We could start there. You don't even have to have empathy. But also, how can we be safe and take care of ourselves? And I think that's a big question, and one of those main huge paradoxes just for life itself, right? And so many levels, like when we think of economics, or when we think of what we're going to do with our lives, like our jobs, or the way we're taking care of children, or whatever. That's kind of the work, actually, of how to be in a state where you can do both of those things, where you can be safe driving your bike or your car or your relationship or whatever, yourself, and also be in trying to hold the space, rather than that you decide that you're against whatever could possibly harm you, right? So being aware something could harm you and being careful, but not turning into that like as a position that you're against, that you're fighting against.
That's a tough one. Again, evolutionarily, I feel like we're wired for something else, but
I think we are, and we're also at a point where we are wiring ourselves differently, and that's why we need to figure out what do we really want. And it's not only about being a good person and like these kind of things. I really honestly think life, as I was saying, and is actually experienced at a much more sensory, motivating, meaningful, exciting level when we're able to be in this place, and when we help each other stay in this place where we're of care, that tension of holding paradox. I actually really think there's a whole kind of life that we haven't explored yet, that's possible from doing that isn't kind of mystical or sentimental or anything, but just literally feels the kind of the way that we want to feel when we watch movies, and the way it feels to drive fast, like those same kind of things that are exciting. I really think there's something about care and being able to hold the tension that actually leads to more of that in a really good way. It's hard to, in normal life, help each other create the space to be able to cultivate that.
Yeah, well, it obviously does take a lot of effort, consciousness, and education. It seems like,
Yeah.
Like it's funny. Like, so there's this crab fisherman show.
What? Crab fisherman show?
Yep. So it's called
That
Deadliest
sounds
Catch.
awesome.
Yeah, and so it's just all about these guys that go out on a boat for 6 weeks in like the freezing whatever. It's great, like brain rot TV or whatever.
Oh,
but
gosh.
but so that
sounds tough, though.
well, yes, right, and they are frequently low education, high intensity. They're not very aware of themselves, because they'll talk about like how we're crab fishermen and like we don't have feelings, and then like 3 seconds later they're like yelling at each other.
They actually
because
say that we're crab fishermen.
Yeah. They're the toughest guys in the world in their minds.
You're not allowed to have feelings. I mean, this is our livelihood at stake. I don't care how you feel. I have a job to do. We're crabbers.
But then, of course, like they're just overwhelmed by emotions constantly, and it's largely anger or whatever that comes out towards each other.
Can't you get your ass off the deck? Tired of it.
But like the feeling, the sense that you can get away from it, I guess, is the funny part to me of like, oh, I don't live by my feelings. Like, sorry, buddy, like we whether you want to look at it or not, this is what's in control of you. And so you can either educate yourself about it and like learn what's actually happening inside of you, or you can pretend like it doesn't exist and just live in denial of it. But it also not only puts you out of contact with yourself, but puts you out of contact with all the beings and people around you. But it does take effort.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, what do you think helps that situation? Because I think a lot, like we are our bodies, we are our feeling, and a lot of that fighting and anger is actually to feel that connection we were talking about at the beginning. Weirdly enough,
yes,
it's to kind of like get into that space of presence.
Yes, to start defining an ego. Like, you offended me, so there must be a you and there must be a me. And
and
we're
we must
different.
care about each other. Like, there must be there's something electric going on here, right?
Yes. Well, yes. Once again, that's the opposite of what I was intending by that. But
okay.
Yes, I mean,
we're actually I think we're modeling holding paradox just by
right. So I think what you're saying is more broadly true. I think that the feeling in the moment is like, I can't allow you to do that to me, or else it diminishes what I am. So in order for me to be more substantial, then I have to fight back at a you, as if there is a you and if there is a me. And I feel like that distinction is largely made up. I mean, obviously we've got different electromagnetic fields surrounding our atoms.
There is a you and me. That's yeah. But we're also co-creating each other in some weird way.
Yes, right. Because whatever happens from this moment on, you are going to have shaped what I am, and so you are a part of me, and I am a part of you. At least as long as we both have memories.
Even if we don't remember it.
Speaking of memory, you may remember that neuroscientist and hippocampus expert Lynn Nadell graced this podcast for one episode where we talked about the field that he transformed, the function of memory and mapping. Well, guess where I went to hear his most recent ideas on the topic when I was preparing for his episode? That's right, it was Andrea's podcast, where she has a whole series with her apparently good buddy Lynn Nadell. So I had nothing to teach her on the topic. I'm a little bit jealous, and I'm telling you right now, if you're subscribed to my work and not hers, you should fix that immediately.
I think that's what's so crazy about relations is, just like what we can't maybe handle so well yet, like why this is delicate, right? To really be present and to really feel the power of love in the way that we were talking about. Because we change each other. I mean, this conversation, it might be a little thing, it might be a big thing, but we can't undo it, or if I teach a class or I go hear a lecture or whatever, I mean, you just don't know what's going to come from that. And it's amazing how much it changes everything. I mean, honestly, I can remember times that someone said something to me at the grocery store who I will never see again, that I still remember, that actually changed something, right? Or even like turned me on to some book or something. It's just so powerful that I think it's even hard to understand. And and that fighting or that anger or that just kind of raw emotional sense is maybe not easier, but comes more naturally, I guess, than I don't know. It's just, I think, what do you think? I think it's kind of uncomfortable, actually, to be in that state if the other person isn't going to be in that state with you. And so that's, that co-creation thing is so fascinating there.
I mean, it depends on your ego as well. So I find myself frequently more curious than the person that I'm talking to, and more curious about them than they are about themselves or me or the interaction. And I feel like the majority of relational rhetorical questions should be asked non-rhetorically. Like, what kind of person would do that? Or how could you think that? Like, these are interesting questions. How could you think that? Like, what kind of a person would do that? I'm just interested in that. Like, I understand, like, there's the evil and there's the whatever, like, you and the law have a relationship. So you need to deal with this thing that you did. Also, how do you get there? Like that's because I would get there if I had your brain state. That's what I'd be doing. So that this is fascinating to me.
Not only your brain state, but also your whole body and your whole life up to that point, because those can't be disconnected.
Yes.
I just have to say that as a philosopher of mine. But
I
I'm
appreciate
really
it.
interested in you seem to have this like were you like that as a kid too? This kind of taking a step back and like questioning,
I have no
looking,
idea. I
You
don't
don't
know.
know?
I spent 40 years in a really high control, essentially a cult, fundamentalist evangelicalism. And so
40 years? You
yeah,
look like you're 40. So does that mean you were
uh,
born 40 years ago?
yep.
I mean, you don't even look 40, huh?
I appreciate that.
How can you?
So
You don't have
no,
to tell me how old you are,
so
but that
I'm
just it's
45.
kind of shocking,
That's
right? Like,
yeah. So well, but I have leaned heavily. Leaned hard into this impulse that I feel like I must have had, and I've got certain glimpses of it along. But also, the kind of person who's like curious and open is not the kind of person who spends 40 years in a high demand religion. So
I
generally,
don't know.
unless
I don't know.
okay,
I
how do
really
you
don't
see
know
that?
because you could be very tense in that situation for a long time as a curious person, maybe just not able to break out of it. I mean, I've
Right.
definitely, and in a way, if you were curious, it would become like a high pressure kind of situation to investigate, so to speak. I mean, I also grew up religious, but not in a kind of, I mean, I had choice about it after a certain point, but there was something about the religion. And because you're basically, you know it better than me, but you're kind of going to school all the time. You're kind of learning. And that inspired me to question those very things I was learning. But that's what's so awful about it, because then they're not supposed to. And you feel awful because, they're teaching you how to question, and then you're not supposed to question.
Yeah. Well, we didn't do as much of the teaching how to question as we did teaching how to come to the right answers. So
Mm.
it was less of learning and whatever that thing is that pretends to be learning, that gathers new information, but is careful never to test the dogma. So I don't
Was
know.
it a Christian? Did you say Christian?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, because Jesus, I think, is an amazing philosopher. He's questioning all the time. And questioning, and also not questioning to judge or demand, but towards that kind of feeling into that presence in the way that we were talking about. So, yeah, of course, everyone tells you what you should think about that. But if you're just, reading some of the stories and things, I think there's actually a lot of philosophical stuff in there.
Absolutely. Yes. Uh-huh. As long as you're open, like the message of yeah, I didn't intend for this to go into the religion route, but like the message of openness of like, okay, you're seeing it this way, but maybe you should see it this way. That if you carry that spirit forward, then that is definitely, that will lean into curiosity and education and all that stuff and actual learning. But as long as what that person concluded, like once again back to like Newton, like his curiosity gave us what we got from him, and if we then go, okay, he was the curious one, he was the right one, he gave us the better idea, now it's his idea, well, now you're not gonna ever throw him out, which is sometimes what you have to do in order to honor the spirit of the person who gave you that thing, is when they say something that's wrong, testing it the same way they would have tested it if they were in your shoes later on.
Yeah, I think I just want to fractalize it a lot, because I don't. There's ways that Newton learned how to think. Even there are facts, right, that we can say, okay, that doesn't work in this situation, and that's not true anymore, or maths or something that might still actually. I mean, there's a lot of Newtonian stuff that still works really well. So in certain
All of it.
situations.
Pretty
So,
much, yeah.
again, it's not that it stopped working or it's wrong. It's just that there are other descriptions for particular situations that might be better. But also, it's just, I think, a way that we've come into thinking that is represented sometimes by names. So, we might want to throw out certain ways that we were thinking, but we might also want to let this kind of not just be about a one person, but like, let it be a little more complicated, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. I think it already is, Like when we look back at science and nothing gets thrown out completely, or it gets thrown out and then it gets brought back in, or it gets imagined or whatever. But there's something about, I think we're learning how to do what we've been talking about over time in a way that makes all of those people really important, no matter what gets thrown out about their work, if that makes sense. There's some kind of, and not just them, but all of us together as humans, as life, I think we're coming into different ways of thinking and feeling, because I think feeling is part of cognition, and hopefully caring for each other that needs all the Newtons too. Like we don't need to throw them away. Like that was a step in this process, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Right. Yes. I mean, we're all still currently standing on each other's shoulders. And
yeah, always.
So,
right.
Yeah, to say that they're not necessary because we've made it higher than that,
Right,
or that we've made it
exactly.
differently than that. It's not like you're saying. It's not even linear. It's this branching, this beautiful bush of perspectives.
Yeah.
That we need those to be able to make it where we are. We almost defined the three things that I set out to define before we started the real interview. So we're 60% of the way through that. We were also going to talk about e-cognition, but I feel like a lot of what we've been talking about is very much related to that and just not.
Yeah, I just like e-cognition, or 4E, or the E's. It's like embodied, ecological, embedded, inactive. There's exaptive. There's a lot of different ways. Emotional. It's really just what we've been talking about, that what we think of as mind is in cognition. Our mind, like we think it's in the head somehow, stuck in our head, in our brains only. But actually we have this whole central nervous system. The brain itself extends through our body. We have neurons throughout our body. I mean, we are actually like one big central nervous system. Sensory, and all of that actually is mind. It can be hard to get your head around because, like we think we're just these thoughts in our head, but we're not. That's just like the tip of the iceberg of this embodied process of how we make our way through the world, which is our cognition. And it actually connects to all the stuff we're talking about, because all those are in a way cognitive decisions that we're making or helping each other make, or opening new kind of ways that we can extend our mind or extend our care, our feeling, stuff like this. So that's e-cognition is just trying to get us out of our head, and we're not computers, right? We're not like we don't have computers behind our skull, and that's what mind is. It's actually an embodied, co-creative interaction. All the stuff we've been talking about.
Right. Well, and I feel like for me, an easy step into that is like just imagining if I was in someone else's head, which is a stupid sentence, but it's kind of a fun experiment anyway, because like if I could put myself in someone else's body, I was immediately notice, I'm taller now, or I've got different body parts now, or I've got back pain now, and this is all affecting the way that I'm perceiving the world. Like if I've got chronic pain, my brain is working differently because of what's happening back here. Like you're saying, every part of your body is a part of what is happening that makes you, if that's even a thing. So
I think that's so important, actually, because, I try to remember that when I'm just coming over a cold a bit because I was traveling a lot. And when you have a kind of cold, or you have a headache, or like, it's such a different existence, And when I'm in that state, I try to remember, gosh, like people have worse than this every day. And it's really hard to remember how different it is to try to be in conversation, to go get the groceries, to take care of whatever, when you're in those kinds of states. So I think what you said is really super important about what happens with the way that we connect with love and the way we hold paradox and so on. Because also it's not only what you said about like having a body pain, but what books did you read as a kid? Like what was your, what movies did you watch? Where did you live in the world? What kind of patterns of exercise did you get to meet trees? Did you have like all that stuff, right? Is creating a different mental lens. And it's not like good or bad, but it's just what's happening.
Sure. Well, and who did you see in the grocery store 5 years ago? And what?
Right. What did they say to you? What did your elementary school teacher say to you? What did one person happen to see about you and tell you they liked about you? That those kind of things are incredibly.
Well, and what parts of yourself are you trying to hide from the world too? I think plays a huge role in it.
And who told you should hide those?
Right. Yeah. Well, and even Yeah, and for the ones that like even no one told you, because I feel like we all have things. We all have these secrets that like we're afraid that they would earn us rejection from community or whatever, or that like this is weird about us. But then like like everyone else has had that same experience, and we're all privately embarrassed about it, and we're all holding on to these things. I feel like if I could get into someone else's head and see what they were embarrassed about, I'd be like, oh, you should put this in a book and just put it out to the world. Nobody cares. Like this is silly that you're so worried about this. But this is also changing how you relate to the world and the way you interact in social situations and what you're trying to protect yourself from, and that isn't even like what your mom or dad told you about your identity. This is just like self-imposed handicaps that you've got. And handicap is probably even the wrong word. Just different ways of being.
Well, but I see what you mean, and it's not, I mean, it's self-imposed, but at the same time, you probably saw some movie or, like something in your world probably told you that you should be embarrassed about that or something. And I really think one of the most powerful things we can do is love that, whatever that is, because I think everyone has something they're ashamed of, or they don't want other people to know, or, there's something, right? And if we can see that as actually the place to that's the point, right? To love, to kind of somehow bring into presence, even your own at first, or tell one person. Like once you can bring that out of that secret space and actually kind of shower a little bit of care on it, wow. I mean, it becomes a very powerful thing. Like, exactly for the reason you just said, because in a way we all are trying to help each other do that. And a lot of times those things that we think are secrets or those silences are actually keys to something very good about us, actually.
And they are common enough that like if a stand-up comedian says that thing that you're ashamed of, they're going to make millions of dollars saying that. Like this,
That's probably true.
new thing that they're willing to say that everyone feels, but that no one's willing to say. Like this is so common that like you're able to connect with people better if you have a better relationship with yourself.
Is that kind of what your show is kind of doing in a way, trying to like give that space to people to, or
yeah, maybe
something?
I haven't ever thought of it in those terms before, but I would definitely say, so when I left that organization that I was part of before, part of that process was that all of my private texts and emails and stuff had been accessed and were leaked to all of my community to the world. And so there was like literally, along with narratives that were built on top of it that weren't true, but there was enough real stuff there that was like, it made it was horrible. Horrible is too light of a word. But anyway, but it was also like if you can go through that, some kind of a public shaming and survive and stay on the planet, then you're somewhat invincible. Like there's nothing left.
It's kind of freeing, isn't it? Because you lose that trying to hide thing.
Right. Yeah. In a way that I wouldn't wish on anybody any more than, I'm sure once you go through chemotherapy, like I'm sure that you have realizations about life on the other side, but no one wants to actually wish that on anybody. But
no.
But absolutely, yeah, there's a certain value there that I think you can only get through that kind of a situation. And so, but that was part of, I guess, when you're asking about the podcast, like, at the end of that, I had this 40 years buildup of this curiosity that I think I might have had for a long time. And I never was able to say those things fully because I knew the cost of saying them. But once all that cost was gone, like, well, my community's gone and my respect's gone and my reputation's gone and like all this stuff, like I might as well actually ask these questions that I've had all this time. So like, if I'm really honest, this thing seemed weird the whole time. Is this weird? And you finally get to like ask those questions. And so I think a lot of the podcast is, trying to encourage that and also talk to other people who are doing the same thing of just like, I know my community doesn't want me to ask this question, or this is not a thing that humans frequently think about, but doesn't it seem like, and then holding up something that might be otherwise inconvenient.
Yeah. Well, I think if you can do that in a spirit of non-judgment and like try kind of creating this place where it's okay to do that, even just like setting that example seems really like important, that we can even be aware that something like that can be attempted, um it feels, yeah, I mean, I can understand it a bit because, with all my academic stuff, I've always had some things that I know I really want to try to express, and it's not in any way comparable what you've gone through. But in this very weird world of academia, you're supposed to stay in particular rules and routes. You might know this, I don't know, but so you're not really supposed to kind of step over certain places. And I kind of decided I'm gonna just do it because this is life, and like you come from the place where you just have to kind of put yourself out there. And that's part of why I started the podcast. It's all research for other stuff, but putting myself in the public eye was the last thing I wanted to do, right? And when you were talking about that, it felt a little bit like that to me, as if someone was reading all my text messages or something. Because people say all kind of stuff and it's always there, and it's just like but yeah, there's something so transformative about that, and exactly the way you were saying too, that once you've done it and you've like sat with that tension and just let it be, let people see you however they're going to see you, then I don't know, you realize you're not that little limited idea you had of yourself, actually. Yeah, and maybe there's more to do and more to give.
So then, can you real quick tell me what are some of those things that you feel like are not supposed to be said, or that are not supposed to be emphasized, that you feel like you got to step over the line?
It's just, you in academia, in philosophy, and in neuroscience, you usually have to kind of stick with one particular philosophy or one particular lab or one particular idea. And what I've tried to do is exactly this holding paradox thing of, so, I mean, it won't mean anything to you probably or your listeners because it's a very nerdy sort of thing, but in philosophy, there's certain things that you don't put together. Like, let's say computationalism and what we were talking about with embodied mind. Those typically aren't supposed to be held in the same space. And so if you're writing certain papers, or you're in certain classes, or you're teaching certain things, you do get made fun of, right? And it's ridiculous, but it's like if you're in one camp and you use an idea from another camp, people will sort of make fun of you. And I just decided that was kind of silly, and I just decided to let people make fun of it. And yeah, I don't know, what you end up finding out, to your point too, is that everyone sort of already felt like that. Nobody really wants to be, I mean, everyone's interested in Nietzsche or Camus or Alan Watts at the same time that they're reading these like Wittgenstein and Daniel Dennett and like these, like you don't have to choose one or the other.
Right.
But a lot of people felt like they still feel, I guess, like, yeah, I don't know. There's just weird pressure in that way. And also with the neuroscience and stuff. But like you said, we're all doing that in a way to find our place and like feel like we've gotten our stronghold. But in our hearts, I think we're all motivated towards something that actually is beyond those categories, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and those are safe things because like there's a tribe there, and you know that
Yeah,
you're
you
in that
wanna
tribe
stay
instead of that tribe over there.
I guess that's kind of how I don't know if you felt that way, but
100%. Yeah,
yeah.
explicitly throughout by the descriptions of my experience in my podcast. Like that is the thing. It's like my fan base is team possibly wrong, and we're like the anti-tribe tribe. Like, I feel like that's once you leave your tribe, unless you run straight to the other tribe, and their other tribe is frequently looking at the exit door of the other tribe because they want those people to come over there because they're great PR for their tribe.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't leave that tribe and immediately go over to the other tribe, then you end up in this liminal space where you find, oh, there's people who just hang out. Like people have been doing this. Like, oh, there's people in the middle. There's people who aren't just looking for a tribe, and like those people are my favorite people.
Yeah, liminal is where life is. Liminal is like that's the point that we've been talking about in a way of that presence. It's not, and yeah, I don't think you have to reject the tribe either. I mean that's hard. Maybe you have to at first, especially in your case, because it's a very different kind of thing. Or maybe there's a rejection, just like
I
you
think
have
that's the
to.
one.
But I do think like what I've tried to do and what's been so hard but also so rewarding is still love my tribe. Like I actually really do connect and love all of these different groups. I actually really do. And I just let them make fun of whatever part of me they think doesn't fit with them. And it's become kind of okay. I mean, I'm not saying people are like making fun, but it can get really tough in academia for sure. I mean, people suffer from these kinds of things because you have to write papers and all these things are kind of built on it. But I have really found it so rewarding. I don't know if you can if I feel like maybe you're doing that with your talks and your podcast. It can be kind of lonely because
Sure.
you're holding it. But yeah, I think it opens up a whole other way of living and kind of similar to what I was talking about before and in a way that's I don't even question if it's worth it or not.
Well, and I feel like that when you're in the tribe, then you've got the faux security but there's a thing, at least in the back of my mind, that's like, well, I'm secure as long as I don't say this or do this. Like I know what the rules are for this, and so it feels safe because I know what the rules are, and as long as I don't break the rules, then I've got a tribe. But then when, and I think this is what you were gonna say. I kind of interrupted there. Like it's not so much a matter of like me rejecting the tribe as my tribe saying you're not welcome here anymore. And that's where the other tribe wants to welcome you. So it's like, well, now I don't have this tribe, but the security that you find in the middle, I think, is really the amazing thing. Because like, oh, there's no tribe to reject me now. Like I can be honest, and I can interact with these other people, and there's not a requirement for inclusion because this is not a place where inclusion is at stake.
Yeah, and you also, I don't know if you've felt this, but it seems like the worst thing that could happen, right? That your tribe like turns against you and tosses you out. And in a way, they hold that over you as their power, even not consciously, probably consciously actually in your situation. Or, it's part of it. It's built into it. But weirdly, all of that's kind of not actually ever really true because if there's, I don't know who was in your community, but I imagine there's still people that you love and that, you still love them.
Yep.
And they still love you actually. And just because of these like protocols tell you can't express that doesn't actually change it. And there's something incredibly powerful about that too, that you realize that actually the reality of it, the love, doesn't actually depend on any of that nonsense of labeling and tribes and all of that.
But then we're back into the vulnerability space again because I would rather that I didn't love them in a lot of cases, like at least initially,
it's so hard
like
to feel love.
It's painful, like because this is going to be potentially infinitely unrequited, right? And so like this is just me longing. Like it'd be a lot easier to just like cut that off and be like, you know what, never mind, screw you guys. I don't need you. You were horrible people anyway. That you were all along. You were all bad. As opposed to like what you were saying initially. Like there's this one little thing that prevents you from acknowledging the connection that we so obviously share.
Yeah, that kind of brings us back full circle in a way because that's exactly what I was trying to express early on. Is that that vulnerability and that finding the power of that is actually accepting that it's painful to love. That actually you just have to kind of love that pain. Like you just have to kind of go, okay, I'm just gonna like feel this pain and love this pain because that is what is, and somehow maybe that shifts the dynamics of whatever the situation is, I don't know, but the more you resist it, any of us, the more we wish and we try and pretend that like we don't feel it, the more the pain is there, right? So at some point, it's like you love that pain in a weird way so as to be able to handle the love. I don't know what I'm exactly talking about, but, I remember thinking of it with my parents that like, or other people too, just, I cannot believe like what love feels like. You can't, if they're sick or something, or if they're mad at you or they have a wrong idea of you are powerless, and yet, giving into that, you feel this incredible power. Like, whoa, what is that? That I still like, feel so much for them, So that's the paradox, right? That we try to hold.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And you've got a book coming out next year, right?
Yep, next year. Holding Paradox.
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking forward to it. And then
well, thanks for
I'll-
what you're doing too. I really appreciate it, and I really like. I listened to a couple of conversations, and like the one you did with Lynn, it's awesome.
Hmm.
And Jim Rutt, that was really cool.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, so keep going. It's really cool what you're doing.
thanks. I really appreciate
Mhm.
that. Thank you all for sharing this time and space with me. Just for this episode, I put together a paradox worksheet and conversation reflection that's available for free exclusively in the blog post linked in the description. And speaking of great content, to date, Andrea's Substack is the only one that I've been willing to pay for, and it's been well worth it. So if you connected with what she said today, you're going to love her free podcast and her free Substack, and any of the paid subscriptions she has as well. If you are already wanting to share this episode with a friend, you can click on the link for super fans in the description for all the hyperlinks to this and all of the other content hidden in places that you didn't know I hide. Be well, my distant cousins. I'm rooting for you, and you should too.